So I just finished reading the One Piece chapter 1032 as is the ritual of Friday mornings. But before we get started, if you haven't read the chapter yet, I strongly recommend that you do so now. And now that you have, let's dive into it. So at the start of the chapter, we see Marco carrying Izzy, but is still confused about where this giant flame yokai showed up from. Meanwhile, Yamato is still trying to get to the lower levels of Onigashima where the weaponry is stored. She is still trying to stop the destruction of Flower Capital before Onigashima reaches it, and the entire island drops on Flower Capital. Brooke and Robin are still running from the CP0 agents who are chasing Robin as they have been for most of the story. And meanwhile, these events are taking place as what actually happens is the CP0 agents stumble upon the giant yokai while chasing after Robin and Brooke. They reach the floor where Apple and X-Ray are having their argument. And as soon as Alpo looks at the CP0 agents, he starts to taunt them about how they have lost their domain in the Flamingo, and now that they have to do their own dirty work and come to the Onigashima Island to handle the situation. To which the CP0 agents strongly react and let off on Appo. Meanwhile, we also see these agents discussing about the true allegiance of X-Drake and where it actually lies. So this could be something interesting that we might have to look back again. And these are pretty much the recap of the situation from the previous chapters before we dive into the chapter that is titled as The Odin's Sword. Now, these are the ones that actually are the most interesting one in this chapter. We finally cut back to the Zoro versus King fight. King uses a strange attack on Zoro where he pulls his head back and fires a beam-like attack at Zoro. Zoro fires his own attack back after being unable to block King's. And he quickly realizes that it is not in his favor that King is able to fly, and he quickly realizes that he needs to erase that advantage of flight from King if he wants to have any chance of winning this fight. And in order to do that, he starts to use his attack Great Dragon Twister to slash away at King's wings. But King blocks it using those exact wings and is unharmed by Zoro's attack. To which, strangely, King just comes rolling downhill to Zoro and sees that he's actually going to give Zoro a chance by drilling him with swords. And at this point, you probably think that Zoro would have the advantage, but King looks like he's very comfortable in this fight, and Zoro seems to be struggling from the get-go. So Zoro is trying to figure out what the species of King actually is so that he can figure out how to best counter him and use that strategy to attack him. But we see that he starts to say stuff like he has no chance of winning the fight if he can't figure it out. And he's being pushed back by King. This is also when King again attacks him and decks Zoro. And meanwhile, Zoro is lying on the floor, which we don't actually see a lot. So this is something quite very, very, very interesting. And while Zoro is actually lying on the floor, something interesting takes place is he hears a sound, a musical melody, which he connects to a samisen, the instrument that Harry plays. And as soon as that song, that melody goes on, we see that Enma takes and activates an ability that we initially saw when Zoro was handed the sword by Airi when he tried to slash that mountain on the hilltop. And we haven't seen it since. And in typical Oda fashion, Oda just left us there on a cliffhanger and proceeded to show us Harry actually playing the instrument. The shogun goes to the room and he finds Harry, or as he calls her, Komurasaki there. Now remember, Komurasaki was actually slain in front of him, which was a ruse, obviously, but he doesn't know that. So he thinks that he's in the afterlife, and he starts crying and weeping how he was the day that Komurasaki in a ruse was killed in front of him.